The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Taman stood at the center of the room, his pale blue skin trembling as he looked up at the dozens of alien faces watching him. His people, the Velothi, had never been warriors. They were farmers, artists, and builders. Now they were dying. Honored council members, Taman began, his voice shaking. I come before you today not as an ambassador, but as the voice of the dying. My world burns, my people scream, and we have nowhere else to turn. The massive chamber held representatives from 47 different species. Some looked like giant insects, others were covered in fur or scales. A few glowed with their own light, but all of them had the same look in their eyes when they stared at Taman. Pity mixed with fear. Hyjin, a Velothi scientist, stepped forward carrying a small device. She was young, barely past her first century, but her eyes looked ancient. With the weight of what she had seen, "May I show them?" she whispered to Tay-Min. He nodded. The device projected images into the air above them. The council members gasped as they saw burning cities, Velothi children running through smoke-filled streets, bodies piled high in the town squares, mining machines tearing apart beautiful forests that had stood for thousands of years. This is what the Krexan Empire has done to our world, Hyjin said, her voice steady despite the tears running down her face. They came 6 months ago. We had no weapons to fight them. We barely had police forces. We believed in peace. A low growl came from one of the viewing boxes. The image of Wusung, the Krexan military commander, appeared in the air. He was large and covered in dark scales with glowing red eyes that seemed to burn with cruelty. The Velothi world belongs to the Empire now, Wusung said, his voice like grinding stone. They should be grateful we allow them to work in our mines instead of simply killing them all. Weak species do not deserve to rule planets. You have enslaved millions, Taman shouted, his calm breaking. Children work in your mines until they die. Old ones are left to starve. This is not conquest. This is murder. Wusung laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Your people will learn to serve, or they will learn to die. In 7 rotations, Velith will be fully under Imperial control. No force in this galaxy can stop us. The image disappeared, leaving the council chamber in heavy silence. Representative Korth of the Zilani Federation was the first to speak. His tentacles moved nervously as he talked. The Krexan Empire has 12,000 warships. Their soldiers number in the billions. To fight them would mean the death of any species foolish enough to try. But they are committing genocide, Hyjin cried. Is there no law, no justice? There is survival, said Representative Vash of the Andromedan Alliance. Her metallic voice rang cold through the chamber. My people will not throw away their lives for a lost cause. The Velothi should have built defenses when they had the chance. Taman felt his hope dying. He had traveled across the galaxy, spent his people's last savings on fuel and bribes, all to reach this moment. And now he was watching it slip away. Please, he whispered. There must be someone, anyone. The council members looked away from him. Some studied their datapads. Others whispered to their aides. No one wanted to meet his eyes. In the back corner of the chamber, an old Velothi named Jinho slowly stood up. He was ancient even by their standards, his skin wrinkled like old paper, his back bent with age. He had been silent through the entire meeting. There is one possibility, Jinho said, his voice so quiet that the chamber's translation systems had to amplify it. Though it may be just a story told to children. Every eye turned to him. Taman felt a tiny spark of hope light in his chest. Speak, Elder, Taman said formally. Jinho shuffled forward, leaning heavily on his walking stick. At the edge of the galaxy, beyond the void storms, there is said to be a species called humans. They come from a world so dangerous that it breeds creatures of impossible strength and will. The stories say they are Deathworlders. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the chamber. Deathworlders were the stuff of scary stories told to young aliens to make them behave. Old One, Representative Korth said gently, Deathworlders are myths? No species could survive on the type of worlds described in those tales. Perhaps, Jinho said. But I once met a trader who claimed to have seen their ships. He said they were like nothing else in the galaxy, built to survive forces. That would crush any normal vessel. Even if these humans exist, Representative Vash said, why would they help the Valathi? Unknown species do not risk themselves for strangers. Jinho's old eyes grew distant. The trader told me something else. He said that humans have a strange weakness. They cannot stand to see the innocent suffer. It makes them do impossible things. Wusong's image appeared again, uninvited. Let the Valathi chase their fairy tales, he sneered. While they waste time looking for imaginary saviors, my forces will finish claiming their world. Soon there will be no Valathi left to save. The connection cut off, leaving the chamber in silence once more. Te-Min looked around the room. Last time, the faces staring back at him held no hope, no promise of aid. His people were alone. If these humans exist, he said quietly, how would we find them? Jinho smiled sadly. The trader said their homeworld is called Earth. It lies beyond the void storms. In a system called Sol, but young one, the journey would be suicide. No ship has ever crossed the void storms and returned. Then we will be the first, Hyjin said suddenly. I volunteer to make the journey? Child, no, Taemin started to say. Our people are already dying, she interrupted. What is one more life against the chance to save millions? Taemin closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with the terrible weight of leadership. Very well. But you will not go alone. I name you special ambassador to the human species. May the stars guide your path. As the council session ended and the alien representatives filed out, talking quietly among themselves, Hyjin stood alone in the great chamber. Somewhere out there, beyond the most dangerous region of space, there might be a species that could help. It was a thin hope, but it was the only hope they had left. Behind her, Jinho placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Be careful, young one. If the stories are true, you may find more than you bargained for. So-young gripped the controls of her small ship as another bolt of Crexon plasma flew past her window. She had stolen the fastest courier vessel she could find, but it was still no match for the Imperial patrol ships hunting her through the asteroid. Field, warning, hull breach in Sector 7, her ship's computer announced in its calm voice. Life support at 60%. So-young had volunteered for this mission knowing it was suicide. Someone had to try to reach the humans, and she was the best pilot the Valathi had left. Most of their good pilots were already dead, shot down. Trying to defend their homeworld, she dove her ship between two massive asteroids, using their bulk to hide from the Crexan sensors. The patrol ships roared past, their engines glowing like angry red eyes in the darkness. Computer, calculate jump to the void storm region, she whispered. Warning. Jump trajectory will take vessel through highly unstable space. Survival probability is less than 12%. Just do it. The ship's engines whined as they charged for the hyperspace jump. So-young had studied every map and star chart she could find. The void storms were a region of space where gravity wells and electromagnetic fields created a maze of deadly hazards. Ships that entered rarely came out, and those that did were usually found weeks later as empty hulks drifting in space. But according to Jinho's stories, somewhere beyond the storms lay a system called Sol, and in that system lived the humans. The jump engaged, and So-young's ship disappeared into hyperspace just as the Crexan patrol ships came around the asteroids, their weapons charging. 3 days later, So-young's ship tumbled out of hyperspace in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The void storms had torn through her vessel like it was made of paper. Half her systems were dead, and the other half were failing fast. Through her cracked viewscreen, she could see a blue and green world growing larger as her ship fell toward it. She had no power for engines, no way to control her descent. All she could do was hold on and hope. The ship screamed through the atmosphere, its hull glowing red-hot. So-young felt herself pressed deep into her pilot's seat as gravity far stronger than anything on Velith tried to crush her bones. How could any species live on a world with such powerful gravity? The ship crashed in a field of some kind of grain, bouncing twice before sliding to a stop against a hill. So Young hung upside down in her restraints, blood running from her nose. Everything hurt, but she was alive. The hatch to her ship had been warped in the crash. She pushed against it with all her strength, but the terrible gravity of this world made even that simple task exhausting. Finally, the metal gave way and she tumbled out onto alien soil. The first thing that hit her was the smell. The air was thick and rich, full of growing things and life. On Velith, the air had always been thin and clean. This was like breathing. The second thing was the sound. Something was coming toward her through the tall plants, something big and heavy. So Young tried to run, but her legs could barely support her weight in this crushing gravity. She fell to her knees just as a massive creature pushed through the grain stalks. It stood on two legs like a Valathi, but it was built like a mountain. Thick muscles covered its frame, and its skin was a dark brown color. It wore simple clothes and carried some kind of tool in one hand. When it saw her, it stopped and stared. So Young had expected to find savage monsters. The stories about Deathworlders always described them as wild beasts that fought and killed for pleasure. But the creature looking down at her had intelligent eyes, and its face showed concern, not anger. "Are you hurt?" it asked in a deep voice. So Young's translator took a moment to process the alien language. When it did, she was shocked to hear that the creature's first words were about her well-being, not a demand to know what she was doing on its world. Yes, she managed to say. "My ship crashed." The creature knelt down beside her, moving with surprising gentleness for something so large and powerful. "My name is Dong Hyen. I work on this farm. You're safe now." "You You speak to me? You do not attack?" Dong Hyen looked confused. "Why would I attack you? You're hurt and far from home." He looked at her ship, which was still smoking from the crash. "That's not any design I recognize. Are you from off-world?" So Young nodded weakly. The gravity was making her sick, and the rich air was hard to breathe. "I am So Young of the Valathi. I seek the humans." "Well, you found one," Dong Hyen said, with a smile. "Let me help you up. We need to get you to the colony medical center." He lifted her as easily as she might lift a child, even in this terrible gravity. As he carried her through the field, So Young saw more impossible things. The plants around them were huge and green, growing in soil so rich it was almost black. In the distance, she could see buildings that looked both advanced and practical, built to last for centuries. "This world," she gasped. "How do you survive the gravity?" "Gravity?" Dong Hyen looked puzzled. "This is normal gravity." "Where are you from that it feels heavy?" Before So Young could answer, they reached the edge of the field. What she saw there made her forget all about the crushing weight trying to pull her into the ground. A city spread out before them, but it was unlike any city she had ever seen. The buildings were built low and strong, designed to withstand forces that would flatten most structures. Vehicles moved through the streets that looked more like armored tanks than transport craft. And everywhere she looked, she saw humans. They were all built like Dong Hyen, thick and powerful, moving easily under the crushing gravity that was slowly killing her. Children ran and played in areas that would be considered high-pressure training chambers on most worlds. Old humans sat peacefully in gardens where the very air would overwhelm most aliens. "Impossible," she whispered. "What's impossible?" asked a new voice. So Young turned to see another human approaching. This one was female, with short dark hair and clothes that marked her as someone important. She moved with the same easy grace as Dong Hyen, completely unbothered by the deadly environment around them. "This is Minna," Dong Hyen said. "She runs our colony." Minna studied So Young with sharp, intelligent eyes. "First contact with an alien species," she said calmly. "I was wondering when this day would come. Are you a refugee? How did you ... Your ship's in pieces, you're barely conscious from our gravity, and you look terrified," Minna said. "Either you're running from something, or you're here to ask for help. Given that no one's ever made contact with us before, I'm guessing it's both." So Young felt tears running down her face. These humans were not the savage monsters from the stories. They were organized, intelligent, and seemed genuinely concerned about her welfare. But how could they help the Velothi when they lived on this impossible world? My people are dying, she said. The Krexan Empire is destroying our world. I was sent to find the humans and ask for help. Mina and Donghain exchanged a look that So Young couldn't interpret. How many people know you came here? Mina asked carefully. Only the Galactic Council. They said you were myths. Stories to frighten children. Good, Mina said. That makes things simpler. She activated a device on her wrist. Kyung-Soo. We have a situation. First contact, and it's not a social call. A voice crackled back through the device. Understood. Bringing her to the command center? Yes, and Kyung-Soo, wake up the Admiral. It looks like our isolation period just ended. As Don Hyeon carried So Young toward the city, she stared up at the sky. It was blue and clear, with white clouds drifting peacefully overhead. It looked so normal, so beautiful. How could this be a death world? Your planet, she managed to ask. What makes it so dangerous? Mina looked surprised. Dangerous? Earth isn't dangerous. It's home. So Young closed her eyes. If these humans thought this crushing gravity, thick air, and overwhelming environment was normal, what did that say about them? What kind of species could evolve in conditions that would kill most galactic life forms? And more importantly, what could such a species do to the Krexan Empire? The command center on New Bizon was unlike anything So Young had expected. Clean white walls displayed star maps and data streams from across the galaxy. Humans moved between workstations with quiet efficiency, their faces serious but calm. This was not the chaotic war room of a primitive species. This was the nerve center of an advanced civilization. Kyung-Soo stood at the center of it all, studying holographic displays that showed ship movements across dozens of star systems. He was older than the other humans So Young had met, with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent making difficult decisions. Show me, he said simply. So Young's hands shook as she activated her personal datapad. The images that appeared in the air made several humans step back in shock. Burning cities, enslaved children, mass graves. The systematic destruction of an entire civilization. How long has this been happening? Asked a human woman named Yu-Jin. She wore the uniform of a diplomat, but her eyes burned with an anger that made So Young remember that these were Deathworlders. 6 months, So Young whispered. My people had no weapons, no armies. We thought all species were peaceful like us. Kyung-Soo touched a control, and the images changed to show Krexan military formations. Massive battleships bristling with weapons, armies of soldiers in powered armor. Mining platforms that could strip a world bare in weeks. 12,000. Warships, he said quietly. Standard Imperial Fleet Organization. They're not just conquering your world, they're erasing it. Can you help us? So Young asked, though she already feared the answer. How could even these powerful humans stand against such a force? Yu-Jin looked at Kyung-Soo. We have to call the Admiral. Already done? He replied. Emergency session of High Command in 1 hour. So Young was given a room to rest in while the humans prepared for their meeting. The bed was too firm for her liking, built to support bodies much heavier than hers. In this crushing gravity. Through the window she could see human children playing in a park, running and jumping with casual ease in conditions that made her feel like she was drowning in thick air. A soft chime announced a visitor. Mina entered carrying a tray of food and what looked like a breathing mask. This should help with the atmospheric pressure, Mina said, helping So Young fit the mask over her face. Immediately, breathing became easier. And this is food from your ship's supplies. We analyzed it to make sure it was safe. You are very kind, So Young said, but I do not understand. The galaxy believes humans are dangerous monsters. Deathworlders who know only violence. Mina sat down in a chair that groaned under her weight. Maybe we are monsters, she said, quietly, but we're monsters with a choice about who we're monstrous to. Before So Young could ask what that meant, alarms began ringing throughout the colony. Red lights flashed, and she could hear the sound of many feet running through the corridors. What is happening? So Young asked in panic. Min-Ah was already moving toward the door. Incoming transmission from Velith. It's being broadcast on all emergency frequencies. They rushed to the command center, where a massive screen now showed the face of a young Velothi male. His fur was matted with blood, and smoke filled the air behind him. "My name is Bioram," he was saying, his voice breaking with grief. "I am broadcasting from the ruins of Veltar, our capital city. The Krexan Empire has begun the final phase of their conquest. They are killing everyone. Old ones, children, it does not matter. If anyone in the galaxy can hear this, please remember us. Remember that we tried to live in peace." The image shook as explosions sounded in the background. Bioram looked directly into the camera, tears streaming down his young face. "We are the last free Velothi settlement. When we fall, our species dies with us. But we will not beg anymore. We will not plead for help that will never come. We will face the end with dignity as our ancestors would have wanted." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in absolute silence. So Young fell to her knees, the weight of her people's doom crushing her more than the terrible gravity of Earth. "They are all dead," she whispered. "I came too late. I failed them." "No," said a new voice, hard as steel. "You succeeded beyond your wildest dreams." So Young looked up to see a human in military uniform striding into the command center. This had to be the admiral they had mentioned. He was older than the others, with scars on his hands and face that spoke of battles fought long ago. But his eyes burned with a fire that made So Young shiver. "Admiral J1, Kyung-Soo said formally. "High Command is ready for emergency session?" "Cancel it," J1 said. "The decision has been made." "Sir?" The admiral turned to look at the screen where Bioram's final message had played. 70 years ago, my grandfather told me stories about Earth's history, about times when evil people tried to wipe out entire groups of humans. He made me promise that if I ever had the power to stop such things, I would use it. He activated a communication device. "All ships, all stations, this is Admiral J1. Operation Revelation is now active." "I repeat, Operation Revelation is active." So Young watched in amazement as the command center transformed around her. Wall panels slid back to reveal tactical displays she hadn't known existed. The star maps changed to show not just local space, but fleet positions across dozens of systems. Humans spoke quickly into communication devices, and she realized they were coordinating something massive. "What is Operation Revelation?" she asked Eugene. Smiled, but it was not a kind expression. "The day we introduce ourselves to the galaxy." Through the windows, So Young could see ships rising from hidden bays beneath the colony. Not small transports or cargo vessels, but warships. Massive armored vessels that looked like they had been built to fight in the heart of a star. Their hulls were thick and dark, covered in weapons she couldn't identify. "How many ships do you have?" she whispered. "Enough," Admiral J1 said. "We've been preparing for this day since we first detected galactic civilization. We knew that eventually someone would need our help." Changwu, a human in diplomatic uniform, approached the admiral. "Sir, what about first contact protocols?" "The Galactic Council will want explanations." "They'll get them," J1 replied. "Right after we save the Velothi." "Kyung-Soo, send a message to this Galactic Council. Tell them the Terran Federation requests an emergency meeting." "What should we tell them we want to discuss?" Kyung-Soo asked. The admiral looked at So Young, then back at the screen where Bioram's message had played. "Justice." So Young felt hope blooming in her chest for the first time since leaving Velith. These humans were not just powerful. They were organized, they were angry, and they were already moving to help her people. "How long until your ships reach Velith?" she asked. "They're already there," Admiral J1 said calmly. "Impossible. It would take weeks to travel that far." Changwu smiled. "You've been unconscious for 3 days while we treated your injuries. Did you think we were just sitting here talking?" So Young stared at him. 3 days? but that means ... That means our first fleet has been in position around your homeworld for 6 hours, the Admiral said. They're waiting for my final order. He turned to the main communication array. This is Admiral J1 to Fleet Captain Sang-min. You are authorized to make contact with Krexan forces. Demand their immediate withdrawal from Velith system. And if they refuse, sir? Came the reply. Admiral J1 looked at So Young-won. More time. In his eyes, she saw something that made her understand why the galaxy told scary stories about Deathworlders. It wasn't cruelty or madness. It was the cold, terrible resolve of a species that had learned to survive on an impossible world. Then show them what happens when someone makes humans angry. The communication channel filled with the sound of weapons powering up and engines roaring to life. Somewhere, light years away, the Krexan Empire was about to discover that Earth's children had come to play. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had rushed to Nexus Prime after receiving the mysterious message from something calling itself the Terran Federation. The words alone had sent ripples of fear through galactic civilization. Tay-Min sat in the Velithi section, his heart heavy with grief. 3 days had passed since Bo-Ram's final transmission. Velith was surely dead now, his people enslaved or worse. This meeting was just a cruel reminder of the Council's failure to act. The session will come to order, announced Speaker Vex, a tall insectoid being who had led the Council for over 50 years. We are here to address a request for emergency session from an unknown species. The main doors to the chamber opened and a delegation of beings walked in that made every representative lean forward in their seats. They looked somewhat like Velathi, but built heavier and stronger. They moved with a confidence that spoke of power held in check, and their eyes swept the chamber with calculating intelligence. I am Chang-Wu, representing the Terran Federation, the lead figure announced. His voice carried clearly through the vast chamber without any need for amplification. We request recognition and the right to address this council on a matter of urgent importance. Speaker Vex's mandibles clicked nervously. The council recognizes the ... Terran delegation. Please state your business. Chang-Wu activated a device, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber showing star maps. Red markers indicated Krexan fleet positions. Blue markers showed something else entirely. 6 hours ago, elements of the human First Fleet took position around the Velith system, Chang-Wu said calmly. We are here to demand the immediate withdrawal of all Krexan forces from that system. A wave of shocked whispers ran through the chamber. Representative Korth of the Zilani Federation rose from his seat. Unknown species, you cannot simply appear and make demands of the Council. The Krexan Empire is a recognized galactic power with legitimate territorial claims. Legitimate? Chang-Wu's voice grew cold. You call genocide legitimate? He activated another control, and the chamber filled with images of Krexan atrocities. Not the sanitized reports the Council usually saw, but raw footage from Velathi survivors. The representatives recoiled in horror at what they witnessed. This is what your legitimate galactic power has done to an innocent species, Chang-Wu continued. And you have all sat here and done nothing. Speaker Vex tried to regain control of the session. The Council expresses sympathy for the Velathi situation, but one unknown species cannot challenge the entire Krexan Empire. It would be suicide. Would it? Asked a new voice, the chamber's main screen activated, showing the bridge of what could only be a human warship. A human in military uniform looked out at the assembled council with eyes that held no fear, only cold determination. I am Fleet Captain Sang-min of the Terran Federation ship Sol, he announced. I'm currently in orbit around Velith along with 457 other human vessels. The numbers hit the chamber like a physical blow. 457 ships was larger than most sector fleets. But that was impossible. No unknown species could field such a force. You lie, snarled a voice from the Krexan viewing box. Commander Wusung appeared on screen, his scaled face twisted with anger. No primitive species possesses such numbers. Primitive? Sangmin smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Computer, display tactical overview of Velith system. The chamber's displays changed to show a three-dimensional map of space around Velith. Green dots marked Crexan positions. Blue dots marked human ships. The blue dots outnumbered the green by more than 2 to 1. Impossible, Wusung whispered. Sensors show only empty space. That's because you're looking for ships built by galactic species, Sangmin replied. Human vessels are designed to operate in conditions that would destroy most craft. We call it stealth when we're being polite. You might call it invisible. To demonstrate his point, dozens of human ships suddenly appeared on the Crexan sensors, materializing out of what had seemed like empty space. They had been there all along, hidden by technology the Empire had never encountered. Commander Wusung's face went pale beneath his scales. This is das is not possible. Commander, Sangmin said in a voice like ice, you have 30 minutes to withdraw all Imperial forces from this system. If you do not comply, we will remove you ourselves. You cannot threaten the Empire. Wusung roared. We have ruled this galaxy for centuries. We will crush you like insects. You're welcome to try, Sangmin replied calmly. But first, let me show you something. The display changed again, this time showing a single human ship alongside a Crexan battleship for comparison. The human vessel was smaller, but it looked like it had been carved from a single piece of dark metal. No elegant curves or decorative elements, just brutal functionality. This is the UTS Inchin, Sangmin explained. A standard human frigate, built to operate in the gravity well of gas giants, designed to withstand solar flares that would cook. Most ships armored to survive impacts that would shatter conventional hulls. He paused, letting that sink in. Now imagine what our battleships look like. As if summoned by his words, something appeared on the edge of the Velith system that made every being in the council chamber gasp in shock. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Crexan dreadnought, and it moved through space like a predator stalking prey. The UTS Soul sends greetings, Sangmin said with dark humor. Commander Wusung, your 30 minutes starts now. The transmission cut off, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Taemin felt tears of hope running down his face. These humans, these mysterious Deathworlders, had not only heard his people's plea, but had responded with overwhelming force. For the first time in months, he dared to believe his species might survive. This is madness, Representative Vashov, the Andromedan Alliance said, her metallic voice shaking. One species cannot challenge the established order of the galaxy. They already have, Chang-Wu replied quietly. The question now is whether the Council will continue to support genocide, or whether you will stand with justice. Speaker Vex's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed what was happening. The careful balance of galactic politics was collapsing around him. The Council must consider its response carefully. This is unprecedented. While you consider, Chang-Wu said, my people are saving lives that your council was content to let die. He activated his communication device. Admiral J1, the council has been informed of our position. Understood, came the reply. All human forces are authorized to engage if fired upon. Rules of engagement are now active. The chamber erupted in panicked voices as representatives realized they were witnessing the beginning of what could be the largest war in galactic history. A war started not by conquest or greed, but by one species' refusal to stand by while innocents were slaughtered. In the Crexan viewing box, military advisors whispered frantically to their commanders. In 30 minutes, they would have to decide whether to withdraw from what should have been an easy conquest, or face an unknown enemy whose capabilities they didn't understand. Chang-Wu stood calmly in the center of the chaos, watching the beings who had failed his new allies scramble to comprehend a reality they had never imagined. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, human ships waited with weapons charged and crews ready. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth's children were no longer content to hide in the shadows. And for those who preyed on the innocent, That was a very dangerous lesson to learn. Te-Min closed his eyes and whispered a prayer to ancestors he hoped were watching. The Deathworlders had come, just as the old stories promised. Now all that remained was to see if the stories were true about what happened to those who stood in their way. The 30 minutes passed like heartbeats in the silence of space around Velith. On the surface of the dying world, Seok-Jin held his rifle with shaking hands as he watched Krexan dropships descending toward the last free city his people were. Down to their final hours, maybe their final minutes, then the sky began to burn. High above the atmosphere, Commander Wusung had made his choice. The Krexan Empire had never bowed to threats, and he would not be the first to start. His massive fleet of 300 warships turned toward the human positions, weapons charging for what should have been an easy victory. "All ships, open fire," he commanded. "Show these primitives the power of the Empire." The space around Velith erupted in light as hundreds of Krexan plasma cannons fired at once. The barrage was enough to sterilize a planet's surface, concentrated on the human fleet. Positions. When the light faded, the human ships were still there. Not just intact, but apparently undamaged. "Impossible," Wusung whispered. "No ship can withstand that much firepower." "Interesting," came Fleet Captain Sangmin's voice over the communication channels. "Is that the best you can do?" To demonstrate the difference, a single human frigate returned fire, one shot from one ship. The Krexan heavy cruiser it targeted simply ceased to exist, vaporized by energy that burned brighter than a small star. "All ships," Sangmin announced. "Calmly, weapons free. Show them how humans fight." What followed was not a battle. It was a lesson in the difference between species that had evolved under gentle conditions and one that had been forged in the crucible of Deathworld human weapons. Fired beams of coherent energy that could cut through Krexan armor like paper. Their missiles moved with impossible speed and accuracy, guided by targeting systems that could track objects moving near light speed. But most shocking of all was their ships themselves, Krexan plasma cannons that could melt mountains barely. Scorched human hull plating. Imperial missiles that could crack moons exploded harmlessly against human shields. The human vessels moved through the heaviest fire the Empire could produce like predators swimming through rain. "Fall back!" Wusung screamed as his flagship shuddered under human fire. "All ships retreat to minimum safe distance." But there was no safe distance. Human ships pursued the fleeing Krexan fleet with relentless efficiency. Not to destroy them all, but to make a point. Every shot was precisely placed to disable rather than destroy. Engines were targeted, weapon systems eliminated, communication arrays severed. Within an hour, the entire Krexan fleet hung dead in space. Helpless and defeated, on the surface of Velith, Seok-Jin watched in amazement as the Krexan dropships suddenly changed course, fleeing back to their disabled motherships. Around him, other Velathi emerged from hiding, staring up at a sky that no longer burned with enemy fire. "The humans," whispered Yunsu, a young female who had coordinated supply runs for the resistance. "They actually came." New ships began descending through the atmosphere, but these moved with gentle precision, clearly announcing their peaceful intentions. They bore markings that Seok-Jin didn't recognize, but their actions spoke louder than words. The first human to set foot on Velathi soil was Sunhee, commander of the marine transport UTS Incheon. She wore armor that looked like it could withstand anything the universe could throw at it, but her face was kind as she approached the surviving Velathi. "We're here to help," she said in carefully practiced Velathi. "Where are your wounded?" Behind her came human soldiers carrying medical supplies and engineering equipment. They moved through the devastated city with purpose, setting up aid stations and beginning repairs on essential systems. But what struck Seok-Jin most was their gentleness with the survivors. Woo-Jin, a human medic, knelt beside an injured Velathi child with the same care he might show his own offspring. His massive hands, built for strength, worked with delicate precision to treat wounds that Krexan weapons had inflicted. "How?" Seok-Jin asked Sunhee as they watched human engineers restore power to a hospital. "How are you so strong yet so gentle?" Sunhee looked up at the sky where disabled Krexan ships still drifted, their crews now prisoners rather than corpses. On our world, we learned that true strength isn't about causing pain. It's about preventing it. In orbit, the situation was more complex. Commander Wusung sat in his ruined command center, staring at Fleet Captain Sangmin's image on his one working screen. "You should have killed us all," Wusung said bitterly. "That's what we would have done." "I know," Sangmin replied. "That's the difference between us. What happens now? Will you destroy the Empire?" Sangmin was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "Your Empire will face justice for what it has done here. Your leaders will answer for their crimes, but your people? They'll have a chance to choose a better path. And if we refuse?" The human smile was cold as space. "Then you'll discover that what you've seen today was us being merciful." Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than hyperspace transmissions. The Krexan Empire, terror of the outer systems, had been defeated in a single battle by a species no one had ever heard of. The impossible had become reality. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, representatives sat in stunned silence as reports flooded in. The humans had not just won. They had done so with such overwhelming superiority that the victory seemed almost casual. "How?" Representative Korth whispered. "How does a single species possess such power?" Chang Wu, still standing calmly in the center of the chamber, answered with simple honesty. "Because we come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to be strong because we had to be. We learned to fight because the alternative was extinction." He paused, looking around at the faces staring at him in fear and awe. "But most importantly, we learned compassion because we know what it means to suffer." Taemin rose from his seat, tears streaming down his face. "My people. Are they safe?" Chang Wu confirmed. "Human medical teams are treating the wounded. Engineering corps are rebuilding your cities. And the Krexan forces that enslaved your people are now in custody, awaiting trial for war crimes." The Vilathi ambassador fell to his knees, overwhelmed by relief. Around the chamber, other representatives began to understand what they were witnessing. This wasn't conquest disguised as rescue. This was genuinely a species that had risked everything to save strangers. Speaker Vex finally found his voice. What does humanity want from the galaxy?" Chang Wu smiled, and for the first time it held genuine warmth. "Peace, justice, and the chance to make sure that what happened to the Vilathi never happens to anyone else." He activated his communication device one more time. "Admiral J1, mission accomplished. The galaxy is ready to meet us properly." "Understood," came the reply. "Welcome to galactic civilization, humanity. Try not to break it on your first day." On Velith, So-Young stood in the rebuilt square of Veltar, watching human and Vilathi. Children play together under a sun that no longer shone on slavery. The Deathworlders had come, just as the old stories promised, but the stories had gotten one thing wrong. They weren't monsters at all. They were guardians, and the galaxy would never be the same.